Welcome to Consistently Hashing with Gaurav.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and let's get started. In today's video, what I thought we'd do is, uh, so before that, I wanted to let you know that I am good with Golang. So that's kind of my primary language for any kind of development. And I am really interested in showing how to kind of build things using the language, right? So now I've come across a lot of web apps, a lot of apps, right, where people structure their app in a different way, and of course there are reasons behind that. But I also have, I won't say unique, but I do like my own way of scaffolding a project. And in this video, we what we'll do is we will kind of we will try to set up a small app, a mini app, and I'll just show what I do to kind of lay everything out, and hopefully we kind of are able to build something meaningful. In this one disclaimer, in this video, I won't be using any kind of AI primarily. I know that's stupid in the age of AI, but call me a old school guy. I will kind of do things the traditional way. Maybe it's for someone uh, who is new to Golang and they are looking for resources on how to best set up their app. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll have to first share my screen. Let me share that desktop. Cool. I hope you see the GOM page. Yes, I think you do. So let me go to my terminal. Okay, so this is a fresh terminal. There's nothing here. Okay, there's something here. Let's remove this. So okay, so we will first. Uh, so in this project, I'll kind of set up a Go based web server, and what we will be using for that is I use Gin quite a bit. So that's my go-to web framework. I usually go to the GitHub link directly. So let's go there. So yeah, so I am pretty okay with Gin. So that's my go-to framework because it's lightweight. The router is quite fast, and I also like their interface quite a bit. The standard libraries, response and request interfaces. It's okay. I mean, it works for a lot of people. But I like Gin's interface far better. So we'll use this, and I already have this open, Gorm. So Gorm is the ORM that we will use. We will most probably use SQLite as the DB in this case, but we'll still use an ORM on top of that, so that if we want to switch to something else later, we can do that. So let's get started. So I'll just make a web app. Okay, so the first thing I do in any repo is do get init, but that's already been done. So I'll just create a let me just call it web app, so that we don't have any naming issues. Okay, so we have the go mod, and I'll just do go mod tidy. Cool. So the first thing that I do once the go mod and get repo is set up properly, I create two main repositories. I create two main folders. I create a command/run folder. So this is the main executable, and this is the entry point from where the entire app will start. And the rest of the code I treat it as a package. So that's something. So we'll do something similar in this case as well. I try to keep the executable and the and the package separated out because that makes it easy for us to import this in any other project if required, right? So I'll call it command because that's the standard way of doing it in Go, and then just I'll call it run the Go, and then I'll also create another. Let's call this server. No, I know this is quite generic, but it's okay. And we'll just start. Cool. So let me open the file. Cool. I think we have everything. Yeah. Yeah. So this is, as you can see, this is what we have right now. and we will slowly build upon this, and we will add a lot of new things here as well. Cool. Okay. So read up main file because that's what we'll be calling anyways. And uh, server, and then just to let me. So these are a few standard things that I do anyways, and you'll understand why I'm doing this in a couple of minutes. And then what we do is we just, so here we have initialized the server. We basically have created a server object, and what we'll do here is we'll just say we'll run the server, right? So these are the two interfaces that our web app needs to see. Yeah, and I think the internal one work here properly. I just want to OS fatal -1, OS fatal -1. And this is a pretty bare bone. Let me import the empty app for now. And see. Okay, this is called server. So let me just call this server. So cool. So this is more or less what I do in the main executable. This would have a lot more logic. Uh, this may The only logic I may add to this later on is if I decide to add a config object to the server. What I mean by that, okay, let me no first let me go to the server. See you then. And we'll now define the server object. I'll define I so one thing that I do regardless of what I'm building is I always add a context object because that's something which you usually always need. So it's always good to have it in the beginning itself. And so now I need to have so the server will have a lot of other components as well, right? So instead of adding everything into the server object and kind of bloating it out, what I prefer to do is I usually abstract it out into a different config file, and that I call it server config, right? And you'll see this pattern being followed in other places as well. And I'll show you where else I follow the same pattern. But why I do this is because server config is a configuration that can come either from the user or from some env file or it doesn't matter, or you may have some default config as well. And I don't want the server to be doing all these checks, right? So I kind of encapsulate the majority of the validation logic in the server config itself, object itself. So let's we can call it let me just call it post, and we'll call it. Okay, so now we go on to the step of defining a new server, right? So what all do we need the server taken as an input? So context comes to mind because that's something that we're already passing from the executable. And there's something else. I also want to pass the server config. And so I think these two parameters are sufficient. And what do we return? I want to return a server object and an error, right? Because what happens if we are unable to what happens if you're unable to create the server? Because a lot of child objects will also be created in this specific method, right? And another pattern which I don't see very often, but I am a culprit of doing that, is named return variables. So what are named return variables? For example, we in this from this method we are returning a server object, a pointer to a server object, and an error object and an error variable, right? So if you see, I have named the variables already. And a lot of people don't do that. They just return the types, but they don't name the variables. I do that because it keeps my return statements very clean. So I can just see what I can just search directly what things are being returned, and I don't have to actually check what's being returned. Uh, Again, this is I haven't seen this being done in a lot of places, to be honest, and this may be sort of an anti-pattern, but I do prefer doing it this way. Cool. What do we do next? Okay, so till now you see that the server object is quite empty. Now we need to fill it up. So the first thing which comes to mind is the server config. So we need to have a server config. Then, because we want to create a web server, right? We need to have an API engine, and we need to have a database engine. And I think for now, these two things are sufficient. Usually, I also add a cache engine, and I also add a worker manager kind of a system as well to my server, because these are like basic things that you need in most apps. So let me call this API engine and call this engine.engine. Cool. So you can see that Gin was imported automatically by the IDE, and then we used before. Cool. So these are the things that we have. I just wanted to okay. So I open one more item window. Uh, Let me just run. Okay. Let me just run robot ID. Okay. Cool. It's downloading the it's downloading the config file, so that's okay. Now, no, so now one thing you may have noticed that in the new, so when we call the new server from the main file, so you can see that this is the file. When we call main server, we do not pass in any config, and in this we'll pass the config as nil. And now this is a clear indication of why we had a config, why we have a config object, because it makes life so simple, right? So what I'll do, I'll just create a dummy get default server config, and this will just return me config config. And I'll just pass in some default values that most probably won't change. See, uh, and we'll run this on port maybe 1991, because I already have a lot of things running on 880. I think for now these two fields are sufficient, and I just need to say if config equal to nil, then just pick the default server config. So even if the user does not want to pass in anything in the beginning, it's fine. I don't care. And so I'll just get a server object, pass the complex, pass the config, and yeah, that should be done. And okay, I'll just do one more thing before we take a quick break. I want to So this is the run method that you saw in the run.go file. Okay, so this is my very bare bones setup right now. And there are a lot of things that we have to do, but let's see if this works. Let me put the command and, and run this. What happened? We don't know. Oh, okay. There's an error. Let's see why. Okay. Oh, no, sorry. The OS is right, but I have to call exit. So what this does is that OS exit basically uh, returns a zip code. Awesome. So we have our first executable ready, and it's running properly. We see the log, and now we'll kind of go deeper into defining the other objects that we need in the system.